Maharashtra State Power Generation Company, as well as Debasish Mishra, partner at Deloitte India, who tracks metals and power space pretty closely. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking out time for us. Sanjay, let me start with you first. A lot of noise around shortage of power in Maharashtra. What's happening? What is the load sharing? Can you just tell us the current situation at the power demand and supply in the state?
Yeah, you're right. There is certainly shortfall in supply of power. There is substantial situation change. What was before earlier? Say earlier we used to have surplus power, but now there is more demand than supply, and that shortfall is about 800 to 1,000 megawatt per day, and that happens during peak time. That is the current situation of power.
By when should we expect some sort of relief? Because there's a lot of load shedding which is happening in quite a few regions of Maharashtra. Is it just a near-term problem, let's say, of a week or two, or do you think this will be the situation across the summer months?
First, you must understand that this problem is because of shortage of coal, not only domestically, but also internationally. There is coal shortage, national coal shortage, and you know that import coal prices have increased and they have almost tripled than what they were before, say 4 or 5 months back. So this situation will continue for another 1 year at least. There is also concern with regards to gas supply. So all the resources of power, there is constraint, and this is likely to continue for more than a year or so. So with regards to short term, particularly summer season, there will be a shortage of power, not only in the state, but also in the at the national level. And this gap will be monitored very closely by governments, and there will be attempts to close this gap, but there will be some sort of load shedding maybe during the peak time. Government particularly is trying to bridge this gap by way of, say, increasing hydroelectricity and by getting power from other sources like CGPL, where there would be additional PPA which would be done shortly, and we hope that this shortfall will be quite negligible, and there will be only say shortage during the peak time, and load shedding would be the minimum. That is what we are trying to do.
Right. Debasish, could you just tell us what are you picking up in terms of power demand across? Do you think there is a shortage?
I think, there is a, countrywide, the demand is peaking as the summer is progressing and the economic activity is coming back to life. And I was telling in your channel last week only that the electricity demand was almost flattish the year before the pandemic also, and in the pandemic year. But in FY22, the demand went up by almost 8%. And that was after a gap of almost 3 years. So suddenly the system is grappling to adhere to the summer peak, and adding to that is the revised, economy activities, which is adding to the demand. So we are expecting that this month, sometime we may have a new system peak, and added to that is the geopolitics. And as CMD Mahagenco mentioned, the imported coal prices have almost tripled from in last 6 months. So that that gap which was in the margin, almost 200 million tons of thermal coal India was importing, that's also become so expensive that utilities are struggling to import that kind of price and run the thermal plants. So one would expect some amount of load shedding in some states during the peak time.
Debasish on that point, but just to complete the conversation with Mr. Khandare, Sanjay, I wanted to understand from you, is the availability of trained rakes also a problem? Because that is what we were hearing from a few power generators. And secondly, and more importantly, what are the measures that you are taking to reduce the load shedding? Are you buying power from other states? Is it coming at a very high price? If you can give us some color around this.
Yeah, that's also true. Why this coal shortage is also because of, say, constraint in the carrying capacity of railway. Though generation is, of course, reduced, but even if coal is produced at the coal mines, we need railway rakes to transport this to different power stations. And so, of course, because of that constraint in capacity, there is limit to what can be carried to power station. And so there will be shortage, not only in the short term, but also in the medium term. And secondly, as I said earlier, we are trying to bridge this gap by way of more hydro generation, and then secondly by way of having additional PPAs with other generators from other states, and also from Central Power Exchange. So these are the ways by which we hope to bridge this gap.
And Debasish, let me toss that question to you. For years and decades, we were talking about that the power demand is not growing. Finally, it is growing because of the harsh summer, but now we have supply side issues also to deal with. Given that scenario, do you expect that this time around we'll be looking at much higher power tariffs going forward? And what can be done to offset some of the supply side issues that we are facing at this point of time?
Lisa, that's the question.
Yeah.
Yes, Debasish, that question is for you.
Yeah, no, so, power sector, like, most of the contracts are long-term contracts. Almost 80-85% of the procurement is done on long-term, which doesn't get affected by these short-term trends, and it is as per that contract. The short-term power market, it went through the roof, but as you would have seen, the central regulator has put a cap of 12 rupees per unit in buying of that short-term power, but that again restricts Gencos like Mahagenco and others to import coal and produce power. So it's a very tricky situation in terms of how to balance the keep continuing with the supply side where there is a cap on the fuel, because if you're importing coal at $200, you probably will not be able to supply with that cap in place. But overall, utilities will face some kind of pressure on cost pressure on the margin. But I think mostly it's a regulated sector. So it's not that if the prices are going through the roof, the entire price basket is going to have that kind of inflation, price inflation. Most of the contracts are long term.
Okay, Debasish, as well as Mr. Khandare, we'll let you go on that note. Thank you so much for making time and discussing the power situation in the country as well as the state of Maharashtra with us. With that, we'll slip into a very short break with